woman and injuring 2 others.
Investigators in Sebring, Florida now say it appears that the deadly attack on a bank was a random mass shooting. The suspect, Zephan Zaver, is accused of murdering 5 people.
More measles in Washington state. The number of people infected is now up to 25. There are 12 more suspected cases. Most of the people diagnosed never got the measles vaccine.
Virgin Galactic has teamed up with sportswear giant Under Armour.
The clothing company will make special suits and footwear for passengers and crew traveling to the edge of space. Virgin Galactic plans to use rocket-powered planes to carry space tourists. First trip could come as early as this summer.
The New England Patriots may be the most hated team in America, and now their mascot is paying the price. During preparations for the Pro Bowl, New York Jets player, there he is, Jamal Adams, just tackled the Patriots mascot. Later, Adams said that the NFL told him that the person in the mascot costume had to go to the hospital. No word, though, on the extent of the injuries. The league reportedly is not happy about it. Adams was asked for his reaction.
Do I regret it? No!
Adams says that he was just having fun and that he was not trying to hurt anyone.
And our top story today is that breaking news. Roger Stone, President Trump's longtime associate, arrested by the FBI, indicted by a grand jury. A lot to unpack there. For that, we bring in Devin Dwyer down in Washington, D.C. Devin, good morning. What's going on?
Hey, well, I'm here with our team of investigative reporters who have been taking a close look at the indictment that came down very early this morning. Jack Date, Ali Dukakis, 2 of our fine investigative reporters. We've got some of the documents right here. And take a live look. I believe we may have some pictures of that courthouse now in Florida, federal courthouse, where Roger Stone today is making his first court appearance. This is just an initial court hearing. He'll actually have to come up to D.C. to be formally arraigned. And we are also seeing some pictures right now, Will, of the FBI searching his home for evidence after they launched that pre-dawn arrest. A very dramatic scene this morning, taking him into custody. Those agents also trying to gather some evidence for what could potentially be a trial here. But Jack, want to start with reminding people, we hope we can sort of step back and unpack the significance of what is happening today. This is the 34th person that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has indicted.
Right, and it's the 6th person who's associated with the Trump campaign or Donald Trump that's been charged with the crime. And in this case, it's one count of obstructing a proceeding. That was a congressional hearing where he testified, where they accuse him of lying. Also, 5 counts of making false statements and an additional witness tampering allegation.
And we'll get into some of that, but Ali Dukakis wants you to sort of remind us who Roger Stone really is. This is a figure who was very friendly with President Trump, has been a longtime political operative, but not someone who was officially part of the Trump campaign for most of the 2016 season. Tell us a little bit about who Roger Stone is.
That's right, Devin. So Roger Stone is quite the figure in American political history. We first see him arrive on the scene as the 20-year-old young gun to be involved in the Nixon campaign, who testifies before the Senate hearings into that investigation.
Yes,
and
Nixon's face tattooed on his back
he
as well.
He does indeed. And ever since then, he's always been involved in politics. During the Reagan campaign, he worked on Reagan's campaign, and longtime former lawyer to President Trump, Roy Cohn, actually introduced Stone to Stone to Donald Trump in the 70s. They've been friends since.
They've been friends since, and he, of course, claimed credit for getting Donald Trump into politics. This is someone that the president has used as sort of an outside advocate, right? He, during the campaign, was sort of an agitator, self-described political dirty trickster. And in fact, George Stephanopoulos asked him about that. He said, well, I didn't ever do anything illegal, but he has been sort of a fringe character.
He's been advocating for a Trump presidency
for some time.
For decades.
Since 1988, specifically.
So very loyal to Trump. So where does he fit into this puzzle of the Mueller investigation, Jack? I think for most people looking at this, who is this guy? What's going on here? The bottom line is he is been suspected of being the conduit between all those emails that were hacked by the Russians and the Trump campaign. Stone made some public statements at the time that perhaps he had some involvement in that or for early awareness of that. And so Mueller decided to take a close look on whether he had a hand in distributing the emails.
Right, and whether he was sort of a back channel conduit. But, you know, it appears that, you know, there's not that sort of connecting piece in all this. If you look at how the Mueller investigation has proceeded, on the one hand, there's a series of campaign associates who have been indicted, and some of them have gone to trial. And on the other side, you have a bunch of Russians who have been charged with crimes relating to the hack of the DNC, for instance. Those emails ended up in WikiLeaks. This case seems to bring some of that together, but not entirely, because it would appear, at least from the way this is laid out, that action by the Russians to hack those emails could have occurred independent of the desire by the Trump campaign or by Roger Stone to have those things public.
So the bottom line at this point, at least in this indictment today, and we did give you some of the breakdown of those charges, 7 counts, 5 of them for lying to the FBI, 1 witness tampering, 1 obstruction. None of that in there involves. He was not indicted for conspiracy. He was not indicted for any sort of collusion-related charges. So the bottom line at this point is it's sort of a process crime, very serious crimes. But Mueller didn't lay out in this document any concrete ties to wrongdoing related to collusion. And let's take a look at one excerpt from the document. This sort of caught my eye, if we can put it up here. The Mueller investigators say that after the release of the stolen DNC emails by WikiLeaks, a senior Trump campaign official was directed to contact Roger Stone about any additional releases and what other information WikiLeaks may have. Very interesting there, Jack. Perhaps that was referring to a top Trump campaign official, maybe even the president. It seemed to be at least showing a willingness on the part of Roger Stone and the campaign to try to get some of this material.
Well, around that time, there was awareness by the campaigns, by the media, a lot of people that WikiLeaks had some stuff, and you know what it appears to be is an inquiry of, hey, is this going to be beneficial to us, right? And maybe Roger can find that out. Is that a crime? You know, they seem to stop short of alleging that that's a crime in and of itself.
And of course, let's put up their response. Roger Stone, as he is now being processed down in Florida by federal officials, did say through an attorney that this indictment shows that there is no Russian collusion. They claim that it's attempts to silence Roger Stone. This was an investigation that started about Russian collusion. They're charging Roger Stone with lying to Congress about that. And we're just now hearing from the president as well, Will. Jay Sekulow, the president's attorney, just putting out a statement echoing very much Roger Stone's attorney, saying this had nothing to do with the president. This had nothing to do with collusion. They're right on both of those points, Ali, but at the end of the day, what's going to be interesting here is to see where this piece of the puzzle fits in the broader Mueller investigation. This indictment doesn't paint any sort of damning evidence. There's no smoking guns here, but certainly some misbehavior on the part of some of these Trump associates very close to the now president.
Absolutely, and I think if there's anything that's a smoking gun, it is those campaign officials who are referred to not by name in the indictment as directing Stone to inquire about the emails with Assange and then praising him for after one of the dumps comes during the DNC.
All right, and we'll have much more. And we're running a little tight on time, guys, but they were great to have your analysis here. We know you're going to have much more of that on abcnews.com. We'll have much more later in the briefing room, 3:30 Eastern time. But again, just to wrap up, again for you, Will, a significant development today, the Mueller probe, much criticized by both sides here, now producing yet another indictment, 37 indictments over the past 20 months in this investigation that is now continuing. Will, back to you.
Yeah, Devin, Ali, Jack, thank you for that strong analysis. It's day 35 of the federal government shutdown, and we're following a developing situation related to that shutdown. Many major airports in the United States are experiencing significant delays, slowdowns, ground stops, and much more. And the FAA says it's due to air traffic controller absences. That is big news, and who better to break down big aviation news than our David Curley. He is at Reagan International Airport. David, what is going on?
So this is exactly what officials have been warning of, a shortage of air traffic controllers. FAA saying there was a slight increase in those who called in sick at two centers, one here in Washington, which is actually in Virginia, just outside of the Washington metro area, the other in Tennessee. Now, this center here in Washington is critical because it takes care of the airspace around New York. So if somebody wants to go into New York or come out of New York, it's that center here in Washington. With a shortage, they had too much congestion, especially at LaGuardia, which is a difficult airport to get in and out of anyway. So there was a ground stop at LaGuardia for about an hour, a little less than an hour. And basically the FAA just said, we have to slow it down, get the traffic out of here, and then we will reopen the airspace and lift that ground stop. And that's what they did about 20 minutes ago. The ground stop was lifted, but the delays will continue. And this is exactly what we were expecting as the shutdown went along, and what they've been telling us, both the FAA and experts we've been talking to, is that they will not jeopardize safety. So in order to keep the system working, you have to slow it down. And that's exactly what we have seen this morning, Will.
A headache for travelers, to be sure. Now, David, federal workers are scheduled to miss their second paychecks today, but you have some information that certain TSA employees are actually going to be paid. What do you have on that?
Right, so this is some good news for the TSA, and we just learned that yesterday's absentee rate at TSA was about 7.5%, where it's been the last couple of days. So that's significant, less than 1 in 10 workers, but still very significant. So what TSA has done is they've decided to what they call reprogram, which basically means use some money from 2018 in a different way. And the way they're going to use that money is to pay the TSA screeners and other employees who make less than $90,000 for 1 week. The last week of December. If they worked from December 23rd to January 5th, they're going to get a check for that 1 week. So that's 1 week of pay in a month. But you can see TSA is trying to tell their officers, listen, we're doing everything we can. Can you stay on the job until the shutdown is ended? Here's a week's worth of pay. Hopefully this will help you pay some of your bills. So some good news for those TSA screeners.
TSA trying to provide their workers a little bit of relief. David Curley at Reagan International Airport, thank you so much for keeping us up to speed on what's going on, how the shutdown is affecting airports. And as for how the shutdown is affecting the rest of the government and the country, we're going to bring in John Parkinson. He is on Capitol Hill. Federal workers not getting paid today, day 35 of this shutdown. Is this with the airports happening today and the workers not getting paid today? Is this sort of the tipping point, the breaking point?
Well, I think that we were all looking to the Senate to make some progress today, but then just as we were going on the air, Lindsey Graham came out of McConnell's office, Leader McConnell's office, and said that McConnell is looking to the White House to decide how they want to move forward at this point. Last night, we saw that Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans were weighing these options about maybe a prorated amount for the border wall just to open up the government until February 8th or even February 28th, but funding the border wall from the start of the shutdown on through that period so that they could negotiate a longer border security deal. We saw that House Democrats put a proposal that they were going to release this morning that kind of outlined the caucus's consensus on a border security package. They put that on ice today to kind of give some room for the Senate to negotiate. But right now it looks like, you know, the Senate Democrats have rejected any sense of let's go with a prorated amount. You know, they don't want to do any border security or any border wall funding as part of border security. So I think that the president at this point is really getting a lot of pressure. You talk about the air traffic controllers. Nancy Pelosi just tweeted a few moments ago that you know, the Trump shutdown has already pushed hundreds of thousands of Americans to the breaking point. And she says, stop endangering the safety, security, and well-being of our nation. Reopen the government now.
John, with those two failed bills that came up in the Senate and were shot down yesterday, where do you expect we go from here? Is Congress going to stick around and work the weekend? What's next?
Well, there still are votes possible in the Senate. The Senate is still technically going to be in session today, but the House is dismissed, and they're on basically a 24-hour notice to call them back for any potential votes. I think that in the House, they've already passed a dozen bills, right? So they had a dozen bills that would either reopen sectors of the government or the full government for certain periods of time. And we saw all the House Democrats yesterday come over the Capitol and go into the Senate chamber to watch these votes unfold. And Nancy Pelosi this morning, when she came into the Capitol, she told us, hey, it's all the actions over there in the Senate. Go see what's going on over there.
John Parkinson breaking things down for us on the government shutdown in the nation's capital. And we move from Washington, D.C. down to the capital of Venezuela, where there is political turmoil and U.S. embassy workers have been given a deadline to leave the country. The U.S. State Department ordering all non-essential personnel to leave. We have a man on the ground there right now, Cody Weddle. He's a freelance journalist. Cody, you're there. Walk us through what you see and what's going on in Venezuela.
Well, let me show you around where we are right now, because we're awaiting for Juan Guaido to come out and speak to this crowd in just a few moments. I'm going to have Carlos here pan around, and you can see the podium there. That's where we expect Juan Guaido at any moment now to come and speak to these hundreds of people who have gathered to see him here. This will be the first time we've seen the National Assembly president since he proclaimed himself as the president on Wednesday. And it's been really remarkable so far that security officials haven't tried to arrest him. We expected them to attempt to arrest him as soon as he proclaimed himself as president. But so far, there has been no order of arrest. There has been no indication that they will arrest him, but certainly a big target remains on his back. The most vocal opponent right now of the acting president, Nicolas Maduro.
That's Cody Weddle reporting on the ground for us in Caracas, where political turmoil has gripped that nation. And for more on that, we're going to bring in Shannon ONeil. She's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. She specializes in Latin America studies. Shannon, thank you for being with us. Could we talk about the big picture here? What exactly does this mean, and where do we go from here?
Well, right now we're seeing a showdown in Venezuela. We have the person who's been president for the last 6 years, Nicolas Maduro, who is de facto in control of the government, and the head of the Congress, Juan Guaido, who is saying that he's not a legitimate president, that the elections last year were rigged, and that he should be the president until they can hold new elections. And so far, the United States and most of Venezuela's neighbors have sided with the head of the Congress. But Maduro has the support of the military and de facto control. So that's where we are today.
Okay, and not to sound callous or insensitive or uninformed, but why should Americans care about what's happening down in Venezuela?
Well, Venezuela is a big country in our hemisphere. There's 30 million people. It's got the largest oil reserves in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia. There's many ties with the United States and the rest of the region. And one of the big things that's happened over the last 5 years is people fleeing this country as the economy collapses. So 3 million Venezuelans have left the country. They're pouring into Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, but also into the United States. So there is a human tragedy that's happening here that should matter for the United States.
Now, you've got two people laying claim to the presidency. There's Nicolas Maduro, who has the support of the military, at least right now, but then there's the opposition leader, Juan Guaido. Where do the Venezuelan people, as you understand it, fall on which side they take as to who is their president?
You know, right now we've seen protests come in around Juan Guaido. You've seen people turn out for him, so there's definitely a popular support. But Venezuelans are also exhausted. They've had many years without food, without access to health care, without access to basic goods, and they're also scared. We've seen protests in the past, a couple years ago, when people came out against Maduro, where many people were killed. So while I do think many Venezuelans would like to see a change in government, polls show Nicolas Maduro not popular. He still controls, at least at the moment, almost all of the guns. So that's where we are today.
Shannon ONeil, senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, making us smarter on everything that's happening in Venezuela. Shannon, thank you for being with us today. And now, to get you ready for your weekend, if you're in the Midwest, bundle up, get the ABC News Live app going, because you're going to want to stay inside. It is going to be cold. For more on that, we go now to Alexis McAdams. She is at our affiliate WLS in Chicago. Alexis, how cold is it?
Good morning, Will. A wind chill advisory is in effect throughout the Chicagoland area as we deal with these bitterly cold temperatures. We're talking highs in the single digits and wind chills dipping between -15 and negative 30 degrees. With wind chills this cold, bundling up properly can be a matter of survival in Chicago. Frostbite can set in within just a matter of moments, and those temperatures are dangerous for everyone, including drivers, as cars are more prone to break down or stall on the side of the road in this frigid weather. So first responders reminding everyone to have a cold weather safety kit in their car, and everyone reminded to bundle up as we continue to deal with these below freezing temperatures. Reporting in the Chicagoland area, I'm Alexis McAdams. You're watching ABC News Live.
Alexis, thank you. I just got chills just thinking about that. Stay warm, stay safe, everyone in the Midwest. And then for a bigger picture look at what's going on with national weather coming up, here's ABC's senior meteorologist, Rob Marciano.
Hey, Will, good day to you. We are tracking some wild swings in winter weather. We'll start with the winter blast now in place across the Great Lakes, including Chicago. Preceding that was a ground blizzard yesterday across the northern and central plains. Look at this video out of Davenport, Iowa. And snow not falling out of the sky, but just being blown around from what's on the ground with 50 and 60 mile-per-hour winds, and that'll drop your visibility down to zero. And we talk about the wild swings in weather across the East Coast, from the bitterly cold temperatures earlier in the week to temperatures getting into the 50s or better across eastern New England yesterday, and that caused rapid melting of some of the ice across rivers, leading to these ice flows and ice jams, which exacerbated some of the flooding yesterday with the heavy rain. So kind of a mess. But now the cold air is in place, and we've got lake effect snows that are cranking off at Erie, Ontario, Michigan, and Superior. And with the typical areas south of Buffalo, north of Syracuse, could see 12 to 18 inches of snow. Includes Traverse City, Marquette, Michigan as well, over the next really 36 to 48 hours. And those wind chill warnings are in place for a huge chunk of the Midwest. Not just for this particular Arctic blast, which has temperatures this morning feeling like 20 degrees below zero in Chicago and 10 degrees below zero in Indianapolis. And some of that's getting to the East Coast for your Saturday morning dog walk. It's going to feel like 15 degrees in Philadelphia and 11 degrees in Boston. We are looking at another blast, and this one is going to be preceded by a little Alberta clipper. That means winter weather for Chicago early in the week, in Detroit as well. A little pulse of snow and winter mix. But the big story, once again, is going to be this incredible Arctic air that's going to be pouring down Tuesday, Wednesday. 30 to 50 degrees below zero wind chills above that black line. That is bitterly, dangerously cold air. You got to take a number of precautions if you're going to go outside at all. And if you're, make sure your car starts, for one thing, among other things. And temperatures in Chicago may be the coldest that they've seen in 5 years. They may not get above the freezing mark all day long on Tuesday and Wednesday. So forget about the wind chills there. The cold alone is going to be historic. It is winter after all, Will, but this is really remarkable stuff. So be careful out there if you are in the cold zone. Will, back to you.
Rob, thanks. Yeah, everyone stay warm, stay safe, stay inside. It sounds like going to be a cold weekend coming up. That's going to do it for us here on the Debrief. Thank you so much for watching us here on ABC News Live. I'm Will Reeve. Make sure to tune in to ABC News Live weekdays 3:30. It's the Briefing Room. That's our political show. And tonight, World News Tonight Prime with David Muir. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to download the app. Do that while you're trying to stay inside and staying warm. All right, everyone, take care. Thanks for watching ABC News Live.